Okay, so our virtual gallery walk is um, about to begin. Thank you for being here. Before we get around to seeing the artworks that the scholars made, and that was part of this exhibition, it would be also great to look at all of these photos. That's from the Leaders for Change summits where these artworks were created. These are some images showing scholars participating in these workshops where they were asked to express themselves through art in response to the theme of collective action. So they are showing what collective action means for them, what they hope for a future where collective action is a means of attaining gender justice, and also how they perceive themselves. Uh, and these artworks were made by over 200 scholars who participated in these summits, in these workshops last summer. And of the 200, we have picked just 26 to be a part of this exhibition. And the 26 are really diverse too in terms of where the scholars are from and the experiences they've had before they became a Sadhaka scholar. But it's also important to remember as we look at these 26 artworks that there are about 200 more artworks, 200 more scholars who also share these ideas and share these hopes and dreams for what a feminist future can look like. Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I will go on mute as we see these artworks, and I hope that you can just unmute yourself and chime in if you have thoughts or questions or any observations about any of the artworks that we see.
Can you pause it here, actually, Armela? Or could you back up? Thank you. Oops. Well, it's okay. We can read through this one, but this is the one that I thought was interesting. So I think what's so interesting, turn my video back on, about this description is not only the analogy that she uses about the difference between grass never giving up, but I think that what's interesting is that we talk about, I'm trying to think of the right word here, I guess feminist leadership as having different qualities than what we think of as maybe more traditional leadership, which would be something similar to being rigid and tall, whereas grass is super flexible and kind of moves in the wind and with every situation. And I think that that's pretty similar to some of the qualities of feminist leadership. So Pooja was really insightful about, or gave a really great analogy about how feminist leadership can withstand all different types of storms. And that's the type of leaders that these young women are growing into. So I don't know if I articulated that the way or very well, but that's what this, her quote reminded me of here.
Yep. Thanks, Jana, for sharing. And it's also that I felt when I was translating this that um, like being tall and strong are such supposed masculine traits and qualities. And like Pooja is finding value in that, but then equally finding value in not being that and in whatever else. And the, like flexibility and perseverance that the grass has to. So I wanted to add something to the context under the slide. So the data here is from the 2021 rankings, but 2023 rankings, which is the most recent report featuring the Global Gender Gap Index, has puts India's ranking at 127 out of 140 something countries. But what's most interesting is that in 2016, just like 8 years ago, India's rank was 87, and it has fallen so far down in those 8 years since that to be 127 out of 140 something countries as of last year. The reason here that the artist is mentioning both 18 years and 21 years as thresholds for child marriage is that recently there was a legislation in India that changed the legal age of marriage for women from 18 to 21. And there's a lot of discussion around whether this is truly for the welfare or whether the consequences of that legislation will be for the welfare of the girl child, because increasing the limits for marriageable age also means that more girls are put at risk for child marriage because of the pressures. This like the mindset doesn't change, society doesn't change, just legislation changes, and what does that amount to? There's a lot of discussion around that, and the artist here is kind of reflecting on that to say that none of that matters, because a child is a child, and it doesn't matter what the legislation age is. Um, yeah, I uh, I was just reminded of something when I was looking at this painting. At the Leaders for Change Summit, we had also conducted digital safety classes or workshops for the scholars who were participating. And one of the observations that was expressed at these sessions was how, uh, aside from all the information and access to opportunities and everything that internet provides, the scholars also find that their time online on, say, Instagram or other apps like that is their private time. Living in small homes or in shared spaces, privacy is hard, or like private areas, physical privacy is really hard to come by. But the scholars were saying how to be in an app and projecting yourself as the person that you see yourself as, interact with other people online as you wish, is is a moment of privacy, is a moment of emphasizing how independent or free you want to be. And yeah, just looking at this artwork, I was reminded of these discussions. yeah, that's the end of the whole set of artworks. I've seen it so many times, but I still so enjoy looking at all of them together. Like together, I think. I wanted to ask anyway at the end of the meeting, to all the participants, like, what is a feeling that you're left with or that you are taking back after seeing all of that, reading all of that?
I think for me, it's a little bit, I don't know, because like seeing the girls actually paint their or like create their artwork was super interesting to see them be A, creative, and B, have so many different ways that they experience collective action in their own communities. Um, I remember one of the girls saying that like couldn't believe that there was no like big prompt. Well, there was a big prompt, but there was no like very specific direction. And I believe it was the girl who did it was the green portrait that had like maybe more, like she was kind of, it looked like she was yelling, but the that girl was like, wait, there's no, we could do whatever, we can do how we want to interpret this. And I think to see her excited to express herself in a way that like wasn't going to be judged harshly or was like in her own eyes without any parameters was super interesting to see, because she wasn't the only one who had mentioned that of like, so I can do how I feel this, like how I feel. And it's like, yeah, that like, you know, the creativity is yours. And to see where they went with it was really interesting. And to let them have that freedom to see it and now to see it again through their eyes, I think was exciting for me. And then I think the second thing I would say is that it's very clear that we can't do this work on our own. And that's to me what I feel like the bigger picture of collective action is that change can't happen by ourselves and it can't happen in silos and that we have to work together. Um, I think a lot of the girls' artwork when it comes to like community work was like multiple girls going to a home to like convince a girl to go to school. It wasn't just one girl. And just like that saying that we like can't do it alone and there's power in numbers and there's power in the collective to me is very reflective in this.
I think what struck me was just reading each of their individual little artist statements or like the captions that went along with their artwork. I think it brought a lot more meaning to the pieces as someone who's seen them without that, and then also having those translations to pair with the artwork. It really brings you into the headspace of a young activist who's in a space with a bunch of other young activists creating this artwork, and what that experience must have been like to be at the Leaders for Change Summit, inspired by your peers around you, and really focusing and thinking about where you want to see the biggest change in your own life and in the lives of the girls all around you. So I thought that that was a really powerful piece of this gallery walk experience that shed some new light on the artwork for me.
There's an anecdote that I wanted to share, that I haven't been able to find the artwork that went along with that anecdote because there were so many really, and maybe that's a story by itself. But Sabah was at the Leaders for Change Summit, Sabah from Shadika, and she was observing that there was a girl who had drawn a picture of a girl, just a girl, like a single girl. And her friend who was sitting nearby asked her, "Is that all? Is that it? Like, you've just drawn a girl. Like, what does that mean?" And she says, "But it's not just a girl, it's a confident girl." And then she goes on to paint the girl that she's just drawn. And I was trying to identify the picture, and there were so many pictures of just a single girl on a page looking very happy, looking very proud or content. And that imagery is also the feeling that I'm left with after looking at all of these artworks, and so emotional also in that there is so much hope, and these are from individuals who have been at like first-hand witnessed so much of the trauma and difficulties of being who they are in India today. Like at like all those statistics show too, like it's not just about being a woman or being a young girl, it's about experiencing poverty or homelessness or violence, it's experiencing climate stress and like discrimination based on religion or caste and all of that, and they are really facing all of these head on, and yet there's so much hope and so much conviction that things are going to change and that they will change. And I feel like if there is hope in these artworks, and when they are all drawing confident girls as their future depiction of themselves, how can we not have hope?